From CNN, Trump appointed. Okay, I just got to preface this. CNN's pissed. Okay, let me tell you how they frame it. Trump appointed appeals court judges say Mississippi is violating federal law with mail ballot deadline, but don't block it. They can't just say Fifth Circuit Court rules mail-in votes violate federal law if received after Election Day.
Well, they would have if it had gone the other way.
Yes.
If the ruling had gone the other way, it would have been Fifth Circuit ruling.
Exactly. But because it goes against their weird sensibilities and their, uniparty establishment bootlicking, then it has to be Trump appointed.
Right. They have to delegitimize it.
There you go. Check this out. A panel of 3 Donald Trump appointed judges said Friday that Mississippi was violating federal law by counting mail ballots that arrive after Election Day, but stopped short of blocking the policy before the election, in a ruling that could nevertheless impact voting-related lawsuits this fall. The ruling from the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is Alito's circuit, by the way, is a victory for the Republican National Committee and others who brought the case in Mississippi, a non-battleground state with very little mail-in voting, seeking a ruling by a far-right circuit court friendly to their arguments. Yes, that's called jurisdiction selection or whatever.
Yeah, venue shopping. Yeah.
Venue shopping. There you go. Democrats and voting rights advocates fear that a ruling of Republicans' favor will be used to boost challenges to late arriving ballots in other states, which could make the difference if the margins are tight in key races. Quote, Congress statutorily designated a singular day for the election of members of Congress and the appointment of presidential electors. The Fifth Circuit Court panel said, text precedent and historical practice confirm this day for the election is the day by which ballots must be both cast by voters and received by state officials. Among the states that allow late arriving ballots are Nevada, Ohio, Virginia, as does Maryland, the site of a competitive Senate race. Also allowing for post-election ballot receipt is California and New York, both states that could make a major difference in which party controls the House of Representatives. So here's your scenario, ladies and gentlemen. In 2020, Donald Trump won on Election Day. And Donald Trump said, hey, look at that, I win. They said, no, we're going to get ballots at 3 a.m. And they did. And then Joe Biden won. If this president stands, late arriving ballots don't count. Now, the argument back then was so long as they are postmarked on or before Election Day, they are good ballots to be counted. This ruling says, no. You could have mailed that in 3 days ago, but if it arrives after Election Day, it does not count. I agree. It is the right way to do things. If you want to vote by mail, everybody says this. Whenever you're mailing anything, you got to mail it early to make sure it arrives on time. It is not anyone else's responsibility if your vote don't make it. We should not have vote month. Now, what happens if in 11 days, Donald Trump wins? He says, hey, everybody, I win. I'm the president. And then they say, we've got ballots that have yet to arrive, and we're going to count them at 3 a.m. And then Republicans sue, citing Fifth Circuit Court precedent, take it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agrees. Ballots that arrived after Election Day are void. They cannot be counted. Kamala would have won, doesn't win. Democrats then assert, we won the election. The only reason we're not allowed to have Kamala get inaugurated is because the Supreme Court, Trump's cronies, blocked us. Republicans then say, no. Your garbage late ballots don't count. Election Day was the 5th, not the 6th. That doesn't count. We win. Both sides then have some version where they claim legitimate authority over who actually wins. And where does this country go from there? I don't know, except for maybe people who bet on Polymarket don't get paid out and are quite upset.
Also, it feels like when they do this, it's designed to just keep the stress on the public, right? Like before, you at least knew that if you went to bed fairly early on Election Day and you woke up the next morning, you were going to know who the hell was elected. Now you don't even have any guarantee that that's what's going to happen.
It's a very strange precedent, man.
Well, there's no reason for it. You might be able to make a convincing argument because of the novel election in 2020, because of COVID. You might be able to. I still would say doesn't matter. Like, I don't think that constitutional rules should be bent just because there's some kind of emergency, because the government will just create emergencies. Then I think we all kind of agree on that, and we've seen that in the past. That being said, if the case is the ballots have to be in by midnight, and if they had stuck to that last time, Donald Trump would be the president. So the people that say, oh, this election was either... There are people that say, you can call it whatever you want, but it was a novel system being used. It was unconstitutional. And by that standard, Joe Biden is a totally unconstitutional president.
The thing that I'm a little confused about is it says that they're violating federal law, but they don't actually block it. And so there's the question about whether or not this, as applied, actually has any impact on the 2024 election, unless, I guess, as Tim was saying, it gets escalated to the Supreme Court. And if the Supreme Court ratifies the Fifth Circuit ruling here, if they then go the extra step of blocking it. But if they simply keep it as is and say it's a violation of federal law, but for whatever process reason, it won't go into effect until the next election cycle, then, you know, it may avoid this Civil War scenario that Tim's laying out.
If they haven't specified it, then, you know, I imagine the scenario that Tim lays out is, honestly, it's more likely than not, because everyone, you know, there's been multiple states that have said, oh, it's going to take us weeks to count the ballots. It's going to take us blah, 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 blah.
Maricopa County said 14 days.
It was multiple jurisdictions. I don't remember exactly which ones, but it may have been Maricopa, but like it was definitely like 5 or 6, or definitely 3 that I've heard. I want to say up to 5 that have said we're going to take a long time to count the ballots. We won't know. And the media continues to push that narrative. Hey, it's normal. We're going to keep doing this.
Only happens in swing states, but it's completely normal.
You know, you see that. And also, you know, it's only in the United States as well.
Yeah.
You hear, we were talking yesterday, I think it was, about Brazil, how many people are in Brazil and how fast they know the results of the election. Unless it's literally hair's breadth close, there's no reason they can't forecast it. You know, and if the ballots that get in by midnight are the only ones that count, then you could probably pretty accurately predict what's gonna come out.
I think it doesn't. Why anyone would want to not see this outcome is weird.
Because they want to be able to cheat.
That would be the only reason.
The same reason they don't want people to have IDs.
They're assuming, whoever says this is not a good idea is assuming that there's going to be late ballots. Late ballots are not a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. Late ballots means we failed at some degree.
And we're able to, after the fact, see how many we need in order to skim like no matter what side they come in on. If ballots are coming in late, they already know like what they need to change the outcome. So you don't want late ballots.
Well, no, they do. But the reason is just like the reason they don't want to have IDs is because they don't want tight rules. Tight rules are harder to get around. So if you have even like whatever the rules are, like they should be tight and strict. So go ahead.
I don't want proof of U.S. citizenship to vote in a U.S. election.
Yeah.
Just this morning in Virginia, the Justice Department has forced illegal voters, non-U.S. citizens,
back on the rolls.
Back on the voter rolls. The Justice Department intervened. Glenn Youngkin, the governor, is absolutely livid over this, and rightly so.
So, yeah.
But the Justice Department, the crooked Merrick Garland, criminal mafia squad that currently occupies that building, has forced illegal voters back on the voting rolls less than 2 weeks before the election. So, I mean, I wouldn't overthink this. Their job is to try to pad as much as possible in order to do a come-from-behind, red mirage, blue shift type event like they did in 2020. That's the function of Mark Elias. That's the function of Norm Eisen. That's the function of the Brookings Governance Institution and the Aspen Institute Governance Institution. This whole policy web is designed to allow the political operatives to harvest, to mail, and to do, frankly, several other things.
Well, where's the Republican apparatus? What do they have?
Well, the problem is any attempt to muster a Republican apparatus will get chewed up by the Justice Department. This is what they've been doing. There's the 65 Project to arrest, imprison, and disbar, as they did to Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman.
And real quick, the Tea Party had the IRS sent on them by the Obama administration.
Right.
So, and that's not even a big, powerful legal apparatus. It was Tea Party members were getting investigated by the IRS for ridiculous reasons.
Well, look at the Georgia situation, right? 19 of Trump's allies, including Trump himself, were rolled up by the criminal justice system for an alternative electors scheme, right? That was the exact same thing that the Democrats did in 2016. They actually got 13 votes in the Democrat Congress to go ahead with an alternate elector scheme. They were game doing that in 2020 with a group called the Transition Integrity Project. But when the Republicans tried it, because they controlled the Justice Department, they simply arrested them. They called it a civil. They called it a RICO scam. When Republicans did it, it's just like when there are protests that turn violent on the Republican side. That's called domestic terrorism and 20-year felony conspiracy charge. But when they do it, it's good trouble. So it all comes down to who controls the Justice Department.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have it so nobody controls it, that it just can exist?
No, I mean No, because it's people. It's always going to be run by people. And even if you go and say something like, "Oh, well, someday it's going to be AI," there's going to be someone that programs the AI. You cannot get rid of the inherent bias from human beings.
It's one of the reasons why when they talk about draining the swamp, I always kind of side-eye it, because the idea is like, even if you get rid of top brass in every government organization, they trained the people under them who a lot of the times share the same belief systems that they do, and a lot of times vote the same way or part of the same party that they do. It's not so simple as to just find some corrupt politicians, find corrupt government officials and get them out. It's been cycled downwards through the process of vetting, hiring, and everything like that. It's impossible to really make that change in one fell swoop.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.